Did y'all know Kirk Franklin just dropped a record with Ti and Young Dro?
They thought it was over for you, you had something to show them.
Yeah. So many times I've lost my way.
Help me out, Kirk.
Look, I was definitely surprised. Not necessarily that Kirk Franklin had artists that wouldn't necessarily do gospel music on his project, because we all know that that's kind of what Kirk Franklin does, right? All the way, I mean, the man had R. Kelly on a record, right? So this isn't anything too far-fetched for the GOAT that is Kirk Franklin. But I was just kind of surprised that this collab came together. Now, most recently, Kirk Franklin had a record with Lil Baby, but it was for the Space Jam soundtrack, right? So I wasn't really putting much thought into that record. I'm like, oh, yeah, they're going to call Kirk. Kirk is, inspirational. He knows how to make a victory record, right? And then you put on Lil Baby, like one of the most popular rappers out right now. Like, I understand it, but this situation was a little bit different. The most reason why it kind of piqued my interest was because 1K Phew, who's one of the dopest rappers out of Atlanta, one of the dopest Christian rappers within that Christian rap space, one who gets a lot of respect within the Atlanta area, just recently released a song where he was featuring Young Dro in his new project, Pray for Atlanta. And I was very surprised to hear Young Dro talking about the things that he was talking about. Like, but that's okay, right? People know how to do this, especially if you are an artist. You know how to create art no matter who the consumer is, right? That's just part of your gift. That's just what you know how to do. That's much like content creators. They know how to create content for their audience. But hearing Young Dro and being a fan of Young Dro, I have put Young Dro at one point in my top 5. Look, a lot of people clown me for that, but I didn't care, right? I like me some Dro. He was in my top 5. Like, I always said, Young Dro is a rapper that went to college, because the words that he used. But Ti, y'all be thinking Ti? Nah. Go and check out some Young Dro records. You will be amazed by some of the things he's able to put together and some of the words he's able to form. But off of that, the reason why this piqued my interest is because we just recently had that situation. Now, a lot of people know that there is this kind of bubbling within the Christian rap space. I believe Miles Minnick just dropped a record with P-Lo, a Bay Area legend. So there's not a lack of artists coming into the Christian space and creating art for their consumers. Yet again, thinking about who this was. And I'm laughing because there's a part of the record where T.I.'s like, hey, you ever had it on you and they passed right by you? Yeah, he spared you. And I'm just cracking up because while I get the sentiment, guys, we got to leave God out of some of these things. We got to leave him out of some of these things. But regardless of the fact, as I'm listening to this record and hearing where this record is coming from and hearing the message that's being spoken over this record, first and foremost, man, I don't care who you are. You will rock to a Kirk Franklin record. I don't care if you don't like Christian music. I don't care if you don't care for Kirk Franklin specifically. You will always rock to a Kirk Franklin record. How do I know that? Kirk Franklin is the Pharrell of just music. Like, him and Pharrell sit like this. You know how Pharrell can have a record that plays at a kid's birthday party, and then he can turn around and have a record that he can play at the kickback? Like, that is Kirk Franklin. And Rodney Jerkins is like that too, but Rodney Jerkins is more, I'm going to give you a hit, but this hit is strictly for the artist, right? I'm not making no fun, feel-good music. I'm not trying to get everybody off of their feet. I'm about to make you a hit. This is going to be a record that's going to stick. And there it is. But when we talk about people like Pharrell and Kirk Franklin, they are going to make sure they make you feel good. So this record, much like We Win, that I was talking about earlier, is very much around that. But it is very interesting to me that we are starting to get these people who are wanting to touch an audience or wanting to get their rocks off or wanting to share their testimony. We're getting a lot of these happening like this. I could say while Christian hip hop has been around for a while and they have had a lot of glances within the industry or a lot of touches within the industry, I believe Kanye West, when he dropped Donda, was kind of the one to really get those wheels turning. As I stated, we have always heard these things. We have always seen these things happen. We have always known of these things to be, yet there weren't as many. Like, it's a trend. At this point, it is a trend. It is what it is. At this point, a lot of these things happening is a trend. Why? Because they see what it can do. They've seen the money that it can bring in. They've seen the following that it can create. And it's all about, it's no different. It's all about crossing genres. It's all about being a crossover artist. It's no different than Nelly making a country record or Beyonce going to go make an entire country album. It's no different than when Miley Cyrus went hip hop for like 2 days. It is no different than any of these things happening where these artists are wanting to be, it's no different than when the artists are trying to be a crossover artist, and that's exactly what's happening. And honestly, I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know how to feel about it. How do y'all feel about it? Like, at first, when I was younger, this would have been dope. This is everything that I would have dreamed of. As a matter of fact, Kanye actually dropping Donda was one of the things that I could actually check mark off my list. I wanted, ever since Jesus Walks, I wanted a project like that, and we got that. So 13, 14-year-old me would probably be running around saying that they're all Christian at this point. If you grew up the way that I did, that's probably 13-year-old me, 14-year-old me. That's what we're running around, and that's what we're saying right now. But as I start to look at these things and it start to get a trend, I'm the type of person that, hey, I don't like jumping on trends. I don't like following the crowd. I'm my own person, right? And I'm sure that we have a lot of people out there like that. And so when this was just kind of in its own little area, its own little thing, like, and we had the couple of people that would, come over and say a few words, Salt and Pepper, jump on the record, whatever the case is, yeah, that situation or that whole thing is great. But when we get to a situation where everybody wants to do it because everybody knows the formula, because they understand what's going to happen and how these things are going to move, then it's like, okay, what's the real situation here? What's really going on the situation? I found the song to be pretty dope. I have it in my rotation. This isn't the first time that Ti has crossed this road. I believe when his cousin or his best friend died, he had a whole moment where he was going through his faith journey. I think this had a lot to do with them being on probation and, having to fulfill some obligations. But regardless of all of that, he had a moment that this is what he was going through. This is also somebody who knows the GOAT of Christian hip hop. That is Lecrae, who's had conversations, had him on his podcast. So he knows his way around the Christian space, right? And those who grew up in the South, I mentioned this before, those who grew up in the South, these things are part of their situation, right? Are part of their upbringing. So it is something that they'll never forget. The record is good. When I heard the record, I liked the record. But it did start to pique my interest as to why a lot of this is happening. Why don't you all tell me? Why do you believe that a lot of these things are happening? Why do you believe that a lot of these areas are now being touched? We have a lot of Christian hip hop artists now being a part of the On the Radar freestyle, which is, if you know anything about hip hop or you know anything about the media space, that is one of the most respected places. It's almost like one of the most respected places to get your name out there. It's sort of like Rap City the Basement, like being in the booth with Big Tigger. Like, that's what these moments are. So it's definitely something big that is given back to the culture. But when I start to see these things, it starts to beg the question of, why is this so popular? Why are people doing this? So please let me know.